Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming. If I sound a little low energy, it's because I feel like I might have said this last time. I don't know if I was or wasn't, but I've been a little under the weather, so bear with me. If I have to cough, I will try to go on mute before all hell breaks loose because I've been telling everybody, it's like I actually don't feel bad except when I start coughing, and then like I can't stop. So fingers crossed. All right, let's go over here, share. Is everyone, oh, nope, that's the wrong thing. Hang on, sorry. Share, there, share. Okay, folks see the slides for today? All right, awesome. So agenda, we'll do quick housekeeping. I'll provide like a very quick big picture status, just kind of like for the working group's overall work. And then we're going to dive into some specific work streams. So Chris is going to kick things off talking about kind of where he is with requirements gathering, kind of understanding, what overlap exists between jails management and bhyve management, and, kind of his thoughts on moving forward. So he's been very busy talking to a lot of folks, some of whom are on this call. So thanks for everybody, and very much thanks to Chris for driving that. Then related, Antronig has joined and is going to offer a demo of a couple of things that are related to the jails and bhyve manageability. So excited to see that. Then Joe is going to provide a very quick update on some sort of, really, it isn't adding a whole lot new, but if you all are anything like me and everybody I know, you've got a gazillion things going on. And so, you see an email, but you're not necessarily tracking it. So there's been some discussion, some conversations, some work from a development and sort of kind of finishing up some review of some things that have been in the pipeline for a while as it relates to Active Directory. So Joe's just going to give us a quick status on that, and then also quick update. We have an open position for a OpenJDK developer, and I haven't been involved in the details, but I understand we've been getting quite a few applicants for that, so that's exciting. And then to finish it off, I'll go over a quick, I've got one slide for each of these, just to give everybody sort of a status on where we are for OCI FreeBSD extension, .NET and GitHub Actions. I kind of mislabeled that in the agenda when I sent it out on Google Groups. I kind of had that bucketed in my mind under Samba because that was the specific set of features where that issue came up, but it really is not specific to Samba. It's a very general thing. And then, hey, Michael, and then I'll talk about some recent conversations and plans for future conversations as it relates to supporting AI workloads and the necessary GPU and CUDA drivers. Is there anything else that anybody who's here would like to talk about that isn't listed?
It's Dave here. I just want to say a quick hi.
Dave, hello.
If you get a chance, yeah.
Hey, yeah. You want to go ahead and say hello and say a few words about what you're up to, or does everybody on the call know you? I know a lot of people do.
I think almost everybody does. I don't know Michael Osipov.
So Michael's at a division, used to be Siemens, part of Siemens. Yep. And he, it was really a lot of the requirements that he provided in very great detail that got this whole effort started. So.
So just give me a second to find my notes. What did the same stuff I said to you? Yeah, so very, very briefly, a lot of FreeBSD work development tends to be done without much community visibility. And then we have someone bringing something that's really awesome to the table in quite a finished state. And what I'm hoping to get out of our regular Jails working group calls, it's something that has wider community input. That obviously takes longer, but then hopefully something that we can have in base that addresses, for me, one of the fundamental issues that with Jails that we have, which is that there are many, many tools to choose from, all supported by one person in their free time. And to end up with something that is well integrated from use cases and able to be supported in base is a great outcome for me. To that end, whoops, sorry, I've just lost my notes. There we go. To that end, what we're proposing is to extend the kernel to support some arbitrary per jail metadata and some basic state awareness. When I say state awareness, I mean that it should be possible from outside to understand whether this jail is running, stopped, or in progress of being set up. And that's probably about it. This lines up very nicely to the OCI model from for their state machine. And we should be able to use pretty much exactly the same thing there. The second piece is to add a userland daemon that exposes this sort of state data over some sort of socket API and provide the ability to run hooks when these states change from the user perspective. The background to this is if you looked at Docker on Linux, this is a lot of the sort of functionality it provides, this overview of all the containers that are running and able to make broad changes based on state of that from the outside as a manager rather than from the inside from the perspective of each jail. The third piece is to provide a package-like tool that can fetch, build, and publish what I call, in quote, jails images, but they're effectively tables with minimal metadata. And again, if that is something that we can line up with OCI specs, then so much the better. And then fourth, which is perhaps more aspirational, is to extend the kernel to support non-root jails. And when I say non-root jails, I mean the ability for a normal non-root user to create a jail. It doesn't have to have root inside the jail, but they should be able to do that. And again, this is another piece of functionality that makes more complicated workflows easier to produce on FreeBSD with a much lower security. What's the word I'm looking for here? Help me out. Attack surface. It's the end of my day, and I've done about 6 hours of walking around Pompeii, so I'm beat. That's it in a nutshell. There's a long list of unfiltered data which I've sent through to Chris and Greg already, and maybe we can attach it to the meeting minutes. But
Yep.
The main thing out of this process that I'm looking for is, one, consensus on what we're building. Two, seek developers and funding for that as well. And those are kind of the two next pieces.
Mhm.
We've got some people interested in doing some of the work, and the next piece is to find a way to make that sort of financially feasible. That's it. Any questions? I'm
Cool.
happy to answer them. I think you all know how to find me or where to find me.
Sweet. Thanks. And thanks, Dave. Yeah, so I know we had a call whenever it was last week, the week before, and I know, Chris, you've got a lot of slides to go through, and I'll just, when we get to your section, I'm just going to kick it over to you and you can share your screen if that works. Chris, or you can just shoot me the link and I can do it, but I mean, whatever's easiest. But yeah, that's all great stuff. And you know, and I think we'll figure out how to coordinate. But some of what you talked about there, Dave, I think also is relevant to what I'll be talking about in the OCI update. So let's go back to this. I just paused it so that I could pull up my notes on my other screen. Okay, so housekeeping, recording, we published the agenda, and let's just make sure we follow the FreeBSD code of conduct. So kind of big picture status. Michael provided some really great detailed requirements. and feedback, which provided an opportunity for us to sort of bring this group of people together, right, and get organized. We're now up, we're over 60 members of the working group now, which is great. So, you know, I check the little interest form, the sort of responses, you know, every other day, every couple of days. And, you know, there's almost always one or two more people. So I keep adding them. So how are we going to work? That's in the middle. We're done with the top, and the bottom 5, 6, and 7, those are all in process. So I feel really great, and I'm really grateful to everybody who's rolling up their sleeves and getting involved. So thanks, everybody. So with that, I'm gonna before we get to the AD stuff, Chris, over to you. And how do you want to do this? You want me to stop sharing and you share?
You cannot start screen share while the other. Oh, all right. Okay, hold on a second. Now, let me see if that works. Okay, no, that's not it. Work group. Where is it? Screen 1, screen 2. Oh my god.
It's fun, right?
Okay, that is not working as expected.
Oh. You want to just drop the link in here?
I can do that. Yes. Hold on a second.
I'll just pull it up and share.
And in worst case, hold on a second. I can just share the screen. It doesn't really matter in my opinion. Share the screen. Where's it? Screen 1, screen 2. We're on screen 2. Here we go. All right. Here it is. Can everyone see that?
Yep, but we're seeing the Zoom
slideshow. Okay. Oh, you're still seeing the Zoom. Okay, you're not seeing the. Okay, how stupid is that? Okay. Is that any better?
Nope, same thing. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there you go. That's better. No.
Okay, so it was there. All right. Okay.
Yeah, you just need to minimize.
So here we
it.
go.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
So now hit slideshow.
Okay. Does that work? Any better?
It's loading.
Still loading?
Still loading.
Okay. Yeah, I think then we'll just leave it at that. Can you see that?
I see a blank screen. What does anybody else see?
Yeah, we still see loading.
Yep, loading.
Why the hell is that not working? Okay, I'm gonna post the link. Hold on a second. It's gonna be faster. Okay. Here we go. Should go in a minute anyways. Oops, no, that was the wrong one. Hold on a second. To the meeting group chat. Here we go. Sorry.
Okay. All right.
Apparently, I've got issues with Zoom, I guess. Okay, so I'm gonna run through this because I think most of the stuff that is in there is really probably already public knowledge, right? So basically, we've had a couple of conversations, as everyone knows already. So we're gonna move past that. I also kind of confirmed what Michael Ozipov indicated on the next slide, basically, that there is a couple of ports with the focus on bhyve management.
Just tell me when you want me to go to the next slide.
Yeah, next slide, please. Okay. There isn't really that much going on, and the support responsiveness is probably not as quick as one might like. And I try to compile this on the next slide into a 1 or 2 sentence statement on what we actually want to do with this work stream, because I kind of started out with bhyve, but I think it's also worthwhile to look at jails. And so this is my attempt to, compile it and boil it down. And on the next slide, as you can see, I think the question that we're still in the middle of is really, where does it go? Does it go into base? Does it go into ports? I think probably we're going to start with something in ports that is going to migrate at some point into base. But I think it's the usual problem. And I also looked at what is actually happening within the community. So when we go on the next slide, I started to compile all the different kinds of activities and where they stand in terms of do they address bhyve, do they address jails, in terms of development process, where are they? Are they green, basically progressing? Are they yellow, being stuck somewhere? And I think this kind of also connects to what Dave just said at the start, getting an overview and understanding the different kinds of activities that we're actually working on, I think might help with visibility, but also with finding developers to help out. And so on the next slide, I kind of made the case, or I'm attempting to make the case for sort of a product roadmap, because I think that would also help to understand when we look at bhyve and jails, where do we go from the status quo and how do we progress? So we don't repeat, implementation work again and again, as we've heard come up during our past conversations. And within all the different kinds of conversations on the next slide, you can see that we've had some progress in jails. We've also had some progress on bhyve. In jails, Antonik is going to present jailer anyway, so I'm not going to dig too much into that. Michael has this great jails requirements Excel or jails requirements spreadsheet that is a very, very good collection of the needs that the community and stakeholders have. And I think we probably need something similar also for bhyve. One of the main key points that we've had in the conversations on bhyve was also guest migration, particularly for large enterprise deployments. We clearly lack at the moment what VMware is touting as motion, or vMotion, to move VMs from one host to another. bhyve does not support that. I looked at the code, and I think the basic stuff is already in there because we have snapshot and restore code in there, and I think that is very much feasible to take that and expand that to a migration capability. But obviously, there's a bunch of questions attached to that. So moving to the next slide, how do we progress? And I think they've already indicated that there is clearly a shared space in this problem space of bhyve and jails, which is this blue space. And I think it is worthwhile to focus on this, because by focusing on this shared space, we will improve on both sides, bhyve as well as jails, and then can build on top of the solution that we provide for that. So on the next slide, my suggestion, or sort of my interpretation also of what Dave mentioned, is that let's figure out sort of this minimum viable product where we get to the actual implementation part of building this state daemon or state component within the kernel, and keep the discussions and the conversations going for the parts that come afterwards. And on the next slide, I tried to put this into a sort of graphical perspective. If we have two slides, two streams, one for jails, one for bhyve, there's a state machine component, there is a network and bridge handling component, because we've had that also in previous conversations, that if we take VM bhyve and we take, BUSD, they don't really operate well when it comes to the network side. So if we combine those components, if we work on that, both sides will be able to benefit. And if we build that in an open manner, then basically both sides can benefit, and the ports can benefit, and the community can keep it. The community can iterate on whatever comes from that. So nonetheless, still there are technical questions on the next slide and the next slide after that. I try to also indicate that it's going to be a question of the architecture. Where do we start? And I think it's probably better not to attempt to build that into base immediately. It's probably better to start in ports, I assume, because again, I think everyone in the call knows the process and the difficulties in bringing actual code into base, and the reviewed complexity that it takes to bring stuff into base. So I think when it comes to developing and trying stuff out, it's going to be easier to do this and start in ports. So on the next slide, then this is kind of the short version. Basically, really, let's focus on this, on the shared space. Build whatever it takes to get this state management in place, but also keep in mind the cases and the use cases that come afterwards, like having multiple nodes and different kinds of architectures, secure transport, and so on and so forth, and create the roadmap to increase the visibility of the activities. And on the next slide, in parallel, also, obviously, I want to continue the conversations, the community conversations. I will keep participating in the different kinds of calls to facilitate the conversation that are required to actually get into the execution part, and gather the necessary stakeholders. And last but not least, on the next slide, I've got a couple points that I also want to bring to the table, which I don't have answers yet, but I think it's also worthwhile to pursue. I've noticed, for example, Jailer, it looks great. There is no port yet. Why don't we create a port as the next step? Antronic also indicated, I think, made a great point. It would probably be a great addition to the wiki to have a space where we collect enterprise best practices and workarounds for bhyve and jails. Because at the moment we're kind of missing that, and I think it will also be important to look at this table that I started with the different kinds of activities. There are a couple in there that are that appear to be stuck or are at risk of being stuck, and I also want to look into possible ways to mitigate that or even avoid actually running into the risk. And finally, I was also looking at Bugzilla, and I realized, and I'm probably not telling you anything new here, there's a bunch of old stuff and probably obsolete tickets in there, and I think it would be worthwhile to clean it up. I don't know yet how, but I will look into that as well. Yeah, and that's it from my side.
Awesome. Really great. Thank you, Chris. So thoughts, discussion, comments, questions?
Great compilation, I must say. Really nice.
Okay. Well, yeah, you don't have to respond now. What I'm going to be doing, follow up to this call as usual, is sharing out the recording, but also the slides. So you had shared the slides with me previously, Chris, and if I hadn't been traveling and sick, I would have consolidated it all into one presentation. But I'll do that and then share out the link so that everybody has these slides and you can look them over. I try to make sure that I share with the appropriate permissions so that everybody can comment. So, use that, right? Add comments, add questions. These documents, one of the things, I know not everybody's a Google Docs fan, but I actually like the way that you can really collaborate in the documents. So let's be sure to take advantage of that. Any other any thoughts, anything before we move on to the next topic?
I've dropped a link into the chat of an action items document that complements the spreadsheet, and we have Dave to thank for the spreadsheet, and I have proposed we merge those, but we'll both take care of that.
Sweet.
Yes, one short thing from my side. I'm all good to merging this and bring all the stuff together. And I think it's great to have the sort of helicopter view of everything. So go for it.
Awesome. All right, great stuff. I'm gonna stop sharing real quick, switch back over to the other presentation. Share slideshow. Okay, and now Joe, if you don't mind giving a quick update, and actually I'm gonna zoom out so that I can add some notes in here. So For OpenJDK, if you maybe want to just give the group a quick update on where we stand with that. I mean, it's exciting that the foundation is going to be sponsoring this work. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to make fairly quick progress on it. But then there's also the AD discussions that have been happening. So over to you, Joe.
Yeah, so I don't think I have too much to add to what you already said, but let's see. So I spoke to Michael here, and he described some of the bottlenecks, sharp edges that he had to deal with when he was working with OpenJDK. I spoke to some of the people that the foundation has contracted years ago, the current port maintainer, and then Miller. He's an OpenBSD guy. Actually did some work with the foundation, but ultimately we never got official OpenJDK support. And so that's essentially what this job posting, it's the main goal of this job posting. We want somebody to push us past the goalpost. And I think having talked to Greg Lewis, the person that's most active in FreeBSD with Java, he said that the main requirement is that FreeBSD must pass the JCK test suite, and some other important things that whoever is successful in fulfilling this contract, they also have to make sure that these mandatory features from Oracle are implemented in FreeBSD. And so we have been getting a nice, we've been getting a stream of applicants, and there's some that look really strong. So I'm hopeful that, in a couple of weeks, we'll be able to tell you more and introduce somebody that's to work, dedicated work on JDK on FreeBSD. For Active Directory, I don't have too much to say about this. I can give a very brief overview of the activities that happened since the last meeting. So Vermadden replied to your email, Greg, and just followed up to say that while he hasn't actually added FreeBSD to Microsoft Active Directory, he's done something similar, adding FreeBSD to FreeIPA. And he just sort of lamented that on Red Hat Enterprise Linux, it's a little bit easier. We have some cumbersome parts with the FreeBSD ports. I think you have to rebuild some with different options, he said. He has a blog post about his experiences dealing with this on FreeBSD. And then I think, was it Antranig, I think, responded to the post just to say that our FreeBSD port for SSSD is a little bit lagging behind, and it would be helpful I think John Hickson is the maintainer, maybe somebody can ping him, or somebody can submit a patch that's interested here. I think maybe we want to hear from somebody that's kind of a stakeholder here, somebody that deals with Active Directory in their work. Maybe Michael or Antranig or somebody else might want to chime in here.
Is my microphone working? Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So I'd like to reiterate there are three main points which need to be met to be a proper member of Active Directory. At least join the Active Directory first of all. This is possible. There are a couple of ports needs to be documented. Maybe it depends on your requirements which port you like to pick. One of them, I'm the maintainer, and also the upstream maintainer. It's port maintainer and upstream maintainer. Then there is DNS update, and there is user and group management, which is covered at least by SSSD. And here I'm completely unknowledgeable how this works, whether it works good or not. It works, I think, in the Linux world. I have no idea how good this works in the FreeBSD world, but these are the main goals. I'm not talking about Samba shares, because Samba is a different thing. And then SMB client is also a different thing, which Greg also said there is something in the making with an SMBFS kernel module. So this would be a very good foundation to at least document what needs to be done. The second one, I can contribute a port which I have privately at work. I do have a better solution in my mind, but this requires programming. It could also be in base and benefit for non-Active Directory users, for those who would like to do dynamic DNS, not with Active Directory, but with bind or something else, when in huge installations. I can briefly elaborate. If you have, let's say, 10,000 clients, and you like to manage DNS records, you're not going to mail the DNS master and please update my DNS records. Doesn't make sense. You do dynamic DNS, and with Kerberos you can do authenticated dynamic DNS updates without bothering with the DNS admin. This is actually what Windows is doing, and this is what I'm doing with the bind tools. But I think 80% of the requirements is also made by Unbound, or the libraries provided by Unbound. And with a few days of programming with good C knowledge, this can also be implemented with LDNS and be part of the base system sooner or later, or the ports to update DNS records dynamically if you're not using DHCP. For servers, for instance, servers update their DNS records automatically without fiddling with DNS.
So this is NS update support in LDNS then?
Once again, please.
This is NS update support in LDNS then, isn't it?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
The bits are there in LDNS, but it doesn't support GSS TSIG, which is the authentication through GSS API, and it lacks a command line client. It's just a library, and there is no counterpart to NS update, which is a command line utility. One would need to either write a wrapper in C or something like this. So NS update makes it quite easy, but it requires the entire bind stack to be compiled and configured. I think this is too much for quote unquote a simple task like this. But we can elaborate in a separate session on this if you're interested.
Okay.
Can I jump in with a question really quick?
Yeah, sure.
I posted it also in the chat. I understand what we're looking at the moment is a purely on-premise Active Directory, right?
Yes.
I'm wondering because from my experience in the enterprise area, a lot of stuff is moving towards Azure AD and Entra. Does it make sense to eventually look at that as well, or are there any plans for that?
Unfortunately, Azure AD and AD share only the name. They have nothing in common. Those are completely different products. And saying that you can replace Active Directory with Azure AD is, for me, at least from my understanding, total nonsense. I wish it would have a different name, right?
Well, it has now. I think it's called Entra. It's Entra now.
Maybe maybe if they renamed it, then that's good. But otherwise, it just causes confusion with many people. Why don't you use Azure AD? Because it's not a replacement. It is a different product with different features. There is no LDAP, there is no Kerberos, nothing. So there is no DNS. It's just, yeah, it doesn't compare. Of course, you can run an Active Directory on Azure or AWS, but still will be the same Windows operating system with the same AD, but on someone else's computer.
Okay.
Joining Azure AD for a hybrid server client or whatsoever, I don't know whether it exists for servers. At least for clients, clients can be managed in Azure AD without joining AD. But this is for me now not part of this discussion. I'm solely focused on servers at the moment. How to deal with clients, I have no idea, and this would be too much to investigate.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. It's I've seen that before, where they try to leverage some brand equity, and so they keep a name around, and it ends up just causing confusion, as seems to be the case here. So I have a question as well. So is it the case that we still need to sort of find a quarterback on the developer side who can, kind of pick up all these pieces, or do we feel like we have that person and we know who that person is? And I don't know who I'm directing that question to exactly, just kind of to the group.
I think that most of it is not necessarily programming, but is rather documentation and testing.
Oh,
and from test
okay.
and from testing, we can derive programming tests like with the LDNS improvement. I looked briefly into LDNS code with my humble C knowledge, and there is definitely room for improvement to replace bind tools. With SSAT, I have no idea what needs to be done because I haven't tested it.
Okay.
So,
well, that's better. So, I mean, maybe what would make sense, Michael, is I'm right now, and I'll get to this in just a second. I'm trying to sort of put together like a testing protocol for OCI, and so once I have like a template for that, then maybe it would make sense, and I'm hoping to have that like in the next week-ish. We can then adapt that to create a testing and documentation protocol for this, and then kind of get that out to the community, with links like, this is what we want you to test, and this is what we need to know. And when you find gaps, this is sort of like, please document it in this manner type of thing. Does that make sense?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Sweet. Cool. Very good. Anything else on this one? Thank you, everybody.
I want to point out something, and I mean, I might be wrong, but please correct me if I am. And specifically about the what do they call the new thing? Entra? Okay, sure, Azure AD. Let's call the wrong thing. I want to say that while it's a cool product, and I know many people who do use it, I do have to point out that even thinking about putting resources on it might be useless for us, because the people who do use this product, they don't even probably know what FreeBSD is, and they don't even have the need. This is mostly for banks who have a lot of desktops. Let's put it, mildly. Most of the people who are running actual production servers on the cloud, they don't use Azure AD. They do use other authentication solutions. I've actually seen people using NIS on the cloud on FreeBSD for authentication. So I think it's cool to have a solution that we can integrate with the Azure AD or the AWS, whatever the new product that they named 2 minutes ago, right? That's obviously cool, but I think there's also the idea of a target market, and our target market might not be even remotely interested in having Azure AD support. Maybe if we want to do Azure work, we can integrate with the Azure tools that they run on the server, right? So those might be other interests for Azure that we might have.
Thank you, Antranik, and I'm really glad that you spoke up, because I told you guys I'm going to be low energy. I completely forgot my own agenda, so I was supposed to go to you next after Chris's section. So let's have me stop sharing now. And then Antranik, you can share and you can do the demos that you were going to do.
Okay, sounds good. So this is a very basic demo for anyone who hasn't been in our calls yet on the bhyve or the jail stuff. This might be new, but otherwise we've been working on this for a couple of weeks. Let me share my desktop. A lot of private messages there. Well, yeah, sure. Okay, this is better. So everyone can see my screen? Okay, great. So I will go with a very little of the background of what we did that I also demoed yesterday at the bhyve call. So the story goes that the bhyve doesn't have a supervision tree, which is true. Now, the new version of bhyve does have some basic stuff. For example, if the process crashes, if the process shuts down and requires a reboot, it will reboot itself automatically, but that's the only thing that's done. If it crashes, nothing else gets happened. So you need some kind of process supervision. Obviously, FreeBSD-based tools, unfortunately, doesn't have that at the moment. I mean, I love the daemon utility, but it's not there yet. So one of our community members, Jan, has developed a utility around SV. For those who are not familiar, it's called Runit. It's a init system, very much similar to FreeBSD's. And I'll be demoing how we've been integrating that. And if any of you has any questions, feel free to interrupt while I'm talking as well. We start by modifying the TTYs. I know that sounds so evil. So we in the TTYs, we would usually add a new TTY that is null, that calls in run svdir, which is run its supervision manager, and it will start supervising the processes which are actually symlinks inside var service. So in var service, you would have your bhyve VMs, which are actually symlinks, right? So I have bhyve .0 for my bhyve VM, which points to a directory. This could be any place on the machine. In this case, it goes there to root bhyve .0. And if I do go to that directory, it has a similar thing like this. Now, this wouldn't say much for those who don't run bhyve. And my whole goal is to convert this supervision tree process that Jan has created into a usable thing. Hence, I created something called svbhyve, as in, SV for SV, bhyve for bhyve, which has a similar interface. You can do help setup. At the setup, will set up everything that you need to run SV, as in installing the package of run it, setting up the TTY, setting up directories, configuring it automatically. It's very, basic things. Versioning for, a version, because sometimes you want to know if you're up to date or not. And in it will actually create the VM. So if I create, let's say, SV bhyve, and I give it a new VM name, let's name this VM Greg. And it will create a VM called, there you go, bhyve Greg. And now it has everything in here, right? So, the VM Greg has 1 CPU, 1 GB of RAM, 10 gig of disk, and it will connect to bridge 0. These are the basic stuff for it. If you want to modify that, you can do SV bhyve help init to see what the flags are. Apparently, there are some flags. Yes, that's great. So for that, I will be doing, let's say, init with a CPU of 16, memory of 32. Do I need to add a number or rather a unit? I don't think so. It's always in gigabytes. A disk size of, say, 32 as well, and with the connecting to a bridge called, say, VM bridge. That would be your bridge name, for example. Obviously, we can't name it Greg anymore, as Greg exists. Let's name this one. Who else do we have on the call? Joe. There we go. And now there's a VM for Joe. It got created, and inside the in this case bhyve Joe, it will modify the configuration as needed. In this case, there's going to be a bhyve conf, a bhyve conf with the configuration that you need, the disk size, etc., etc. Now, so this is a very, apologies if there was any. My neighbor is very loud. Okay, so this is the very basic interface on how SV bhyve works. Now, there are currently no checkings, as in it doesn't check if a VM already exists or not. It doesn't check, literally it doesn't check for anything. I'll put it that way. The goal is to add those things, and in the end, what you will end up doing is doing SV bhyve. I think I named it enable. Yes, I named it enable, although I'm hacking on it right now, so it might not work. But in the end, it will actually put up the symlink in var service, just like in case of .0, which will end up bhyve running. This will also create some devices. If I go back to our production-ish machine, rather, it will create some devices in dev nm micro. Remind me if I'm wrong. Yeah, there we go, nmdm, right? So you will get the nmdm devices for your VM interface. These are going to be for the EFI shell, the console output, the console's second output, where sometimes FreeBSD specifically would write the message output in there as well separately, and all of these things will be all prepared for you. And this is the basic interface. By the way, yesterday we did the demo with make files, like it was make install, make run, make enable, and in the last 24 hours I moved it to a shell script. And for those who do like shell, Zoom, you are the bane of my existence. Let me see, how can I show this properly? Oh, there we go. It's currently around 500 lines of code. It still has some work to do, so everything that it generates is currently in this single file. I'm gonna move this into having like a directory, user local share SV bhyve, where the templates and everything exist in there, and it will copy everything as needed instead of saving content in the script. So there is still some work to do, but this is the basic idea of how it works. But the end goal is for the user to never touch the bhyve utility, the ifconfig utility, the truncate utility, or the CA utility, but rather have a single utility, in this case SVBhyve, that will do everything for you, right? So we will have like a layer of, I want to say, abstraction that does all the automation. So you will never need to do anything manually by yourself. With a proper supervision tree, of course. As you can see, for example, the VM bhyve is way more mature. However, it doesn't have a supervision tree. In this case, this is very basic, but it does have a very mature supervision tree thanks to Runit. I'll take any questions. And Michael told me that my audio is a bit loud. I hope this was good.
No, it sounded good. Sounded great. You came through perfectly. Yeah.
Okay, good. So let's see if I am missing anything in here. I think the only thing that I would like to show is dpd. It's such a weird command. One sec. History tree, I want to say. There we go. dtps3. And here you would see Runit is running. And Runit is running a directory supervisor, and it's also doing things with syslog, so it's saving the logs, and it's also running bhyve as needed. It has a very nice way to supervise everything, and you can do something like tail-f, I want to say var log run svdir. There we go. Current. And you will see all the logs in here if there is something not working. For example, one of my VMs is not working, so I would get the error. So you would have a var message style thing, but for Runit and all of the VMs that it's managing. I have no more demo for the bhyve stuff. I will take any questions. And feedback if you think something should be different, a command interface, or just shout out.
What do you guys think? Michael, you're an end user. What's your thought?
Well, that was a very fast introduction.
It was fast. Okay, it wasn't just me.
So,
I was thinking maybe since I'm like the least technical person on this call, and maybe it was just me who thought he was going quickly.
So
and I appreciate you going quickly, Antronig. But yeah, go ahead.
I need to take a second or a third look to make a proper statement here. So
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, that's all good.
It is actually quite interesting using RUnit or rununit, how it is called, for as a supervisor.
Yes.
But it doesn't replace the init system on the server, right? It's just for supervising the VMs.
Yes. We've seen users who actually changed FreeBSD's init with Runit, but we won't be doing that here. Instead, the supervisor for Runit is the TTY screens. And the reason why we do that is in case even Runit crashes, the TTY is going to get restarted. So you will always know that that's always working. And no, Runit runs next to our init system, and it will only supervise anything that svbhyve gives it to do. I will be publishing the code, by the way, on GitHub, hopefully today. I do have a couple of things to edit in the code because it's not that good. it's a bit mess. But I think like as of today, people should be able to use it on the very basic stuff, like creating a VM and running it, and start stopping it. That's going to be pretty much it for now.
Antronig, you showed us how to create a VM.
Yes.
Is that backed by some kind of configuration file that one can edit? And what kind of format is that?
Yes, it does use the configuration file that is used by bhyve itself. So if whoever's not familiar, there is let me bring back the fresh example. Let's go to bhyve, say, we had Joe in here, I guess. There we go. So bhyve does support config files that is parsed and processed by bhyve. It's called the bhyve conf. And this is the interface that it uses. It's actually, it looks weird until you realize this is basically how a computer is designed, like a physical computer as well. So, you would have your CPUs, your memory, the disk that you're booting from. Some of those things can also be random variables, by the way, that you can reuse. For example, the disk here is a variable that is used down below, right? So all of these things are part of bhyve itself. I'm not doing anything in here. I'm just generating the file rather. You would have your host bridge, obviously. And then, you would have your NVMe blocks, your network IO, your what's the RNG called? Random number generator, and everything is in this config file, basically, including the COM ports and some interesting things such as the ACPI tables, right? These are the basics of, and this is generated by me, but it is processed by bhyve itself.
Okay, so if you want to modify that, what is your approach? The user would modify the config file, or would he use your tools to actually modify the config?
A good question. The answer that I can give you right now is I have no idea. So in an ideal scenario, I would love to say write a lot of awk that would process this file and give the user an omnipotent way of did I say that word? Is it no, not the omnipotent. I hate English.
Idempotent.
Idempotent. Thank you. Yes, an idempotent way of processing the file. And you would say, I want this to be equal to that, and then my script would manage all of that for you. Unfortunately, this file doesn't work with sysrc. I mean, because sysrc doesn't allow dots.
Does libuci work with that? I don't know.
A libucl?
Yeah.
No, this is not libucl compatible, unfortunately.
I have a little background on that
okay,
if you like.
Okay. Sure.
What you're looking at is John Baldwin's NVList work. And there were many calls for JSON, YAML, you name it. And this is pretty much a lowest common denominator format that you can, be it pre-process or otherwise, with your favorite tool of choice. So it's a pretty low-level approach, but it opens up many opportunities.
It is, although I have to say, very easily scriptable. So I would be very happy if I had the time and develop the SV bhyve. I wanted to call it SVB, then I realized it means Silicon Valley Bank, so that was not a good idea.
That's not a good idea.
Yeah, SVB crashes, bhyve doesn't. So I would rather
The name
have...
might be free zone, right?
So I wanted in my solution, yes, I would love the utility to do everything. I don't want the user to modify anything manually ever, right? It would be nice if the network and the tap interfaces and everything was managed by the utility, but that is a lot of work. And there's also the opinion problem, like I would like to use -s. No, it should be dash whatever, right? So there's also that problem. But in an ideal solution, yes. But I can tell you for sure that the initialization part currently works without any user modifications, as in you can use the utility to start the VM without touching anything else. So yeah.
Cool.
I've got to say,
just another suggestion.
Yes.
Stupid question, maybe.
Actually, hey Chris, I'm sorry.
Sorry, yeah, we should not discuss this in
I-
too much detail. Sorry, I'm gonna take this for the jail school next time. Sorry.
I'm only because, like, we oftentimes we're able to go over, but all three, myself, Ed, and Joe, all have a call right at the top of the hour, and I want to. I mean, yeah, like, can we, is it okay
no
for us
worries.
to stop here? Is that okay? Because it's
Yeah.
a great discussion,
Of course.
and the demo was amazing, and I really appreciate it. I would love to be able to keep the conversation going, but I wanted to just very quickly touch on a couple of other things before we have to close this call. So is that cool? And then we can kind of keep the conversation going on this one. So can you stop sharing, please, Intranig? Okay, thank you. And thank you again very much. That was really cool. I enjoyed that. So share screen, desktop 2. And I'm going to go through these really quickly. I only have one slide for each of these, but I wanted to make sure that I was able to give everybody a quick update. So as it relates to an OCI FreeBSD extension, so Ed and I had a meeting on October 18th with Doug Rabson. Doug is the author of the Podman-based approach. which is, I think, a really solid solution that seems very well aligned with the in-process product requirements document, PRD, that is being developed. And in that conversation, we talked about like how to how to think about like, there are two current proposals for an OCI FreeBSD extension. There's Doug's, which is based on Podman, and then there's Sam Karp's, which is based on Containerd. And so Doug and Sam have been talking and kind of thinking through like, and sort of talking about the pros and cons of each approach. So what we were thinking of as a next step, and I've got an email out, is to have a quick small call with like, just a handful of folks, Doug, Sam, me and Ed, just to kind of like get a sense of like what we're thinking in terms of how we want to proceed, is with getting to a place where there's at least one implementation that's sort of production ready. Go for it, Anthony.
I would also like if it was possible for Dave, who is in this call, yes, DCH, and Michael, who created the XC, I guess, if I remember the name correctly, utility that is also OCI on FreeBSD utility, to join the call, because we also have a lot of interest in making that happen.
Yeah, totally.
Or hearing what you guys are doing, so we would make our tools compatible.
Oh, for sure. I mean, no doubt. Like, I mean, everything that happens in the open as it relates to this stuff, and everybody who's interested and wants to be involved is invited to be involved. For that specific call, I feel like it's a little bit like, the specific topic is, hey, there are these two proposals, right, that are in play, specific to an OCI extension for FreeBSD. Let's talk through like, how we're going to reconcile the deltas. And then, but in the meantime, if anybody would like to test the Podman-based approach, Doug is very, very interested in getting feedback. So I've started, and in the next handful of days, hope to complete this testing protocol that I mentioned, which will be very simple. It'll be like one page that just says, this is the information that we need. This is, like how, what's your system? Tell us how many nodes, like all that kind of stuff. This is the kind of feedback that we're interested in, and all that kind of stuff. As soon as that's ready, I will share that out, and would really be, and that's, I think, a critical piece that needs to happen right now for Doug to be able to sort of make progress on his piece. But if you don't mind, Anthony, could you just like shoot me an email with the folks that you mentioned? And yes. And I'll either include you in the next call that we're going to have or the following call.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Yep. So that's that one. .NET. So I mentioned that this kind of came up as it relates to Samba. So there's a lot of diffs downstream that really ideally we want upstream in Samba, but Samba, like a lot of other open source projects, uses GitHub Actions for their CI. So they need the platforms that they're going to test new features against to be supported in GitHub Actions. And right now, FreeBSD is not. The reason we're not is because we're not supported in .NET. And so this great community has done almost all the work needed to get us there. And we just need, Microsoft to basically, review, accept those patches, and basically, decide that they're going to support FreeBSD in their .NET system. I forget what they refer to it as. It's like, I don't know, it has some name. So we've been having some really good conversations with people in the right department at Microsoft. They've expressed support. You know, there's still stuff to do, so I don't feel like we're there yet. But you know, Microsoft is aware at multiple levels within the organization and across multiple departments that this is something that we would like to see. We have advocates and champions inside Microsoft who are pushing for this as well. So as with most of how I spend my time, it's following up. So I will be continuing to do that as well. But that's the status there. I feel encouraged by the discussions that we've been having so far. And then similarly, I don't have, you know, we're not ready to take a victory lap on this one, not by a long shot, but I feel like the conversation is moving in the right direction. We had a call with the NVIDIA telco team on October 6th, and they expressed interest in supporting us. And then this week, I just got back from NetApp Insight, which is their big annual customer partner conference. And NetApp has a very strong partnership with NVIDIA. NetApp, of course, leverages FreeBSD. I talked to a lot of people there who are huge FreeBSD fans. I was handing out my FreeBSD lapel pins, and people were putting them on their lanyards and walking around. And then I bumped into the guy who's like the America's lead for AI from like a sales perspective at NetApp, and he had his on, and he's like, yeah, everyone's been asking me where I got it. So you know, that was really great. But and I know everybody needs to go, including myself. So basically my plan is to, you know, use the fact that NetApp has a really great strategic relationship with NVIDIA to, you know, use those connections, right? To say, hey, FreeBSD matters to us, NetApp, and we'd really love if you could put the resources into getting FreeBSD support, right? So that's the strategy that I'm pursuing. And to that end, if anybody on the call or, you know, in this working group has a relationship with NVIDIA, here's some language that you can start with, right? And then modify to make your own, to sort of get the same message to them that like, hey, FreeBSD really matters to me, really matters to my company. You know, right now, enterprises are building out and making strategic infrastructure decisions to support AI. And it's critically important that FreeBSD be a viable alternative for them. And for that to happen, we need this capability. So that's all I had. I hate to have to rush, but we are needed on a call. So does anybody have any last parting words before we close this meeting?
Yes, one thing, please don't forget, Greg, the topic with the enterprise CAs. I've been partially in touch with Des, and the pfSense maintainer complained about the entire CA stuff. I reached out to him. He said, yeah, it's some trouble. He wants to know what the direction is the maintainers are going. So Falco, I don't remember his name. He was on one of the mailing lists, and he responded today. So I think this requires some coordination before Des continues to work, improving. Franco Fichtner, that's his name.
Okay.
He is with OpenPFSense, I guess, as far as I remember.
Okay. All right. I'll I will look into that, and I'll ask my colleagues as well, and make sure that that's included in the notes. I've consolidated the notes into a single Google Doc, so it's super long, but I thought it would just be easier. And actually, I stole that page from you, Michael, Dexter. That is.
He
yeah.
says he supports 200,000 installations for this OpenPFSense or PFSense, and he says he'd like to know what the direction is. So 200,000 installations is not a little.
Yeah, no, that's not small at all.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Well, sorry to have to do this, but I do need to go. But thanks everybody very, very much. And let's keep the conversation going. You all have the ability to post on the Google group. So use that, you know, reach out to me, email me, and I will follow up probably like Monday or Tuesday with notes and everything from this call.
Can I just ask
Thanks,
to make
Greg.
the Google group public in viewing, not posting? The posting can be with form, spam is massive, but like the viewing, because I think people who are not in the group can't even see the Google group.
Sure, I'll try. Yeah, I'll look into that. If I can't figure it out, it isn't because I don't want to do it. It's because I can't figure it out. But I'll look into that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, no worries, no worries. All right, thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
All right,
Take care.
bye everyone.